Well, good morning, namaste, and thank you again on behalf of IVCA because I'm also an executive member at the IVCA. So I truly and sincerely thank all the participants, all the partners, and everybody to make this happen. Let's rewind a little bit, and it is a very big privilege, I must say, to start this conference, particularly in the context of time and space we sit in today. If you step back, we are seeing, in my view, and I won't dwell much because all of you are experts in India, and there are stalwarts like Amit and Manish Kejriwal all sitting here. But the reality is, in many ways, I'm a student of physics, a subject I love the most. There's a concept of escape velocity when an atom moves from one orbit to another, and it requires that critical threshold velocity, and that's called escape velocity. My personal view is, for a variety of factors from infrastructure, stability of government, the per capita, the digital infrastructure, India is hitting its escape velocity, and so is the private equity market, in the country. So I won't dwell too much on why India has become literally the centerpiece of every conversation globally when you go for a fundraise or a discussion about investing, and particularly so when the investing is anchored on growth as the lever to deliver value. So keeping that as the floor, I think let's talk the topic of the day, which is buyouts. This is one theme across sectors, across regions from Kashmir to Kanyakumari. I think investors have started to appreciate and like is we want to do buyouts. Now the question is why? One of the things I learned from my venture friends is this concept of product market fit. Always these young entrepreneurs are told by my venture friends that don't push a product on the customer. Let the customer really pick it up or the consumer pick it up, and your company will only be successful if you have the product market fit. Now, if you take private equity as an industry and the Indian business ecosystem as its customer or stakeholders, let's just see why buyout as a product really hit the product market fit, right? And I'll give you my perspective on why that is the case, having done this for nearly 2 decades. And more importantly, I'll also probably share one reflection I've had on why this product, while its name sounds so familiar to the Western vocabulary, is fundamentally and structurally different in this country. And I hope the conference today and the industry participants can shape the success of that product in the context of this country. So those are the 2 topics for today. So let's talk about why it has become what it has become. I think the superficial glance or the first cut of that would tell you that succession planning. A lot of entrepreneurs started businesses in 80s, 90s, they're coming of the age. The next generation doesn't want to do the same business, they want to do more cooler businesses with tech. That's definitely a reason. But that probably is only one reason. In my view, it has created some supply, but that is not at the crux of it. I think the crux of the product market fit is fundamentally on, in my experience, on the following thesis. India is growing, and so is its industries. Forget private equity for a minute. You look at any industry, the operating industries, the fact that they're growing, the profit pools in each of them is increasing. When profit pools increase, theory of capitalism, competition tend to increase. So each of the participants playing into that market is now answering the question, am I fully prepared to make the most out of the opportunity there? That's the fundamental question a founder, a management team, a CEO, a business is asking. Because the rules of the game are very different. The competitive landscape is extremely high. So from just seeking growth capital, businesses today are asking, how do I become really competitive? Now let me give you some examples so that we can touch and feel. You're a consumer business, traditionally, let's say 40-year-old consumer business selling to mom and pop stores. The business, the founder, the management teams really haven't grappled with this question on what happens if my channel completely change from mom and pop to e-commerce and then e-commerce to quick commerce. How do you really deal with price conflicts? How do I make sure that a quick commerce player, which is discounting the product to get customers by 20%, is not finding its way back to modern trade or general trade and not creating disruption? That question is not one which businesses in consumer industry have answered for last 40 years. If you're a manufacturing business, yes, we want to make in India, we want to become the factory to the world, but how do you deal with tariff? Do you go through Mexico? Do you go through Thailand? Do you go through China? How do you, really reorient your supply chain? Let aside, I'll not talk about technology where the only and the central question in every business is AI. And what's happening in Valley is not something sitting in isolation in India, in the Silicon Valley of Bangalore. You can really answer it. So for every business, there are really existential questions which can either let you on the other side, or if answered right, can build a competitive differentiation which can make this business win in the time to come. And that's the partner which the Indian businesses are looking. And that's why you're finding private equities which have the ability, different capability to bring. And therefore, as I said, businesses are not just looking for growth capital, they're looking for enablers to build competitive differentiation. And that to me, in my experience, is the product market fit, which buyouts have cracked. Having said that, it's fundamentally and structurally very different than its vocabulary in the Western markets, and let me just share why, which I think will set the tone hopefully for the next day and for the industry participants to work upon. In the Western market, the concept of buyout starts with LBO. If you go to the 60s and the 70s literature, LBO means leverage buyout. You fundamentally buy a company, put meaningful leverage with very little equity. You tend to repay from the cash flow the leverage and in turn drive the business a little bit and cut cost. And when you cut cost, EBITDA grows, you have an expansion in equity value with very little expansion in the EV. In India, that's not the case. We don't do LBO. Leverage is not the driver of the return. Growth is. It's the EBITDA growth. Yes, the multiple expands because when you grow EBITDA, you also increase the quality of the business and therefore the multiple at exit is higher than the multiple at entry. But the driver of returns for the investor is growth, not leverage. We don't cut cost. In fact, I was with my colleagues in the US and we were talking about a lot of the Western, including Japanese private equity, is about cutting fat. And private equity or buyouts in India are all about building muscle. Digital, governance, M&A, product capability, you talk about it. And I'm sure through the day you will hear it from people like Amit Dalmia and others who are building operating capabilities in these companies, which are fundamentally building a new muscle. They're not cutting the fat. Third, take private. It's a term which is often used in the Western context, in the context of buyouts, where you go pick a sleepy company which is listed, not trading well, is very different, if not completely different, than in the West. So I'll conclude by saying, the LBO should probably, in the context of India, should be renamed to GBO, leverage to growth, and I would say buyout to build out, because fundamentally private equity in India and the participants of India, by taking control, are trying to build scalable businesses. So I think leverage buyout to growth build outs is where I see this industry going, and hopefully the industry participants can do justice and deliver many sustainable franchises in the process of creating value for their investors. Before I conclude, I must thank a few people. I think firstly Manish, who's been chairing along with Karan the PE Buyout Council at IVCA. I must say, when you operate in isolation, you fully do not appreciate some of the common thematic issues. Sitting at a forum like this, you really know what's troubling the full industry, and you require champions like Manish and Karan to then guide, support, mentor, nudge at times the right stakeholders to get stuff done. So thank you, Manish and Karan, for your stewardship, leadership, and helping IVC achieve what it did. I would also thank the broader PE Council. A lot of support came from each member of the firm when we put together the report with McKinsey, and I think that along with the credibility of the firm itself, IVC and McKinsey, that report has given a very credible, and it's not salesy, That's why I'm using the words very careful. It's a very credible, informative report on what India has to offer for global investors. And I think that has attracted more capital, and hopefully it sets the foundation to attract even more in time to come. And then lastly, I think, Rajat, Akriti, the full P Council for not just setting this event, but being the oil which keeps this engine going. So thank you so much. I really hope that the next day or so is meaningful. We all learn how to build out in India. Thank you.